Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Keys to AWS Optimization, where today we'll be looking at how to use Amazon Q, customizing it and using it to create infrastructure as code and help you optimize not only your code, but also your time, which is a big thing these days, to save time. But I'm joined by Stefan. Welcome to the show, Stefan. Before we kick off, I've always got to ask you, have you had a frugal week or a splurgy week this week?
I would say a frugal one.
Okay. Why is that?
Because I stayed home, we didn't go out. I mean, the weather wasn't good. So it was a very frugal one compared to probably a few weeks back when we were traveling. So yeah, that was good.
Nice. Kind of keeping it down though. I'm the other way. I was away with friends last week. I was in Croatia with my school friends.
Oh, cool. That's nice.
Yeah, it was really nice. The weather was dreadful.
In Croatia, I thought it's always nice.
Yeah, I thought it was meant to be like 30. No, not 30. Maybe like 23 degrees. And we get there and we were just like, why did we not pack like thermals? Because it was so
cold. That's the same.
Which is very funny. People in the chat have said staying in could be the best. I agree. I'm looking forward to it's getting autumnal. You know, I've got my Halloweeny kind of lights out. We're getting more Halloweeny vibes here. So I'm enjoying that. And later on this year, of course, because it's this time of year, we also always have our Halloween special episode and our Christmas special episode. So make sure people subscribe wherever you're watching so you don't miss that. But let's get into today's show. So welcome everyone to the Keys to AWS Optimization, the show where we share stories, concepts, and solutions to help you unlock your spend at AWS. My name is Steph Gooch. I'm a senior SA advocate here to help you on your FinOps journey. And Stefan, do you want to do your 1-minute origin story for us?
Yes, sure. Yeah. So thank you for having me on your show. So it's quite great. So I'm a member of the so-called prototyping team in the AWS industry team. And I work basically with industry customers and help them to develop initial prototypes for topics where they are unsure if it will work for them. And so I have a chance to demonstrate the art of the possible, so to say. So it's a quite nice position to be in.
Yeah, these guys, and you've seen some of these we had Win Europe on recently, and we also have a new show coming out next Monday on these channels. So please make sure that you subscribe wherever you're watching, and also kind of we'll make sure we'll share some links as we go. I might actually, let's just bring up so you can kind of see. So you can also join the Customer Acceleration team LinkedIn, and there we can see the poster for next week. So we're in that show looking at how, like Stefan said, these guys are building out projects with customers, and so they have this amazing expertise, and so we're actually going to bring in those customer stories with the developers behind it so that we can kind of dive into it and share how best to build. But that's not what we're talking about today. Today we're talking about Amazon Q. And throughout, guys, please put your comments, questions in the chat, and we'll be tracking them through. I love the kind of, it's spooky season. Someone's put in the comments. I very much agree. But Stefan, why didn't you just kind of outlay a little bit about what we're going to talk about, and also how you use Amazon Q in the work that you do specifically?
Yes. Yeah. So Amazon Q. So because I constantly work on developing prototypes for different customers, and for me, it's very important to have a way to quickly build things. So because we only have limited amount of time, so we need to get up and running very quickly. And with all these agentic development tools, this became way easier, I would say. And what I will show you today is how to work specifically with Amazon Q in the development lifecycle. And I would love to give you a few things, how I do things, how I customize, how I set up my Q environment so that I can get up and running very quickly, let's say develop code very efficiently and get things done quickly.
Yeah, and especially these days, it really does speed up that development time. And that's what part of what we're talking about today is that. But also, I know we have a lot of people who are FinOps people who are watching, as well as developers, lots of different people. And if you haven't had to play around with Amazon Q, especially kind of in an IDE, so in things like Visual Studio, which we'll see today, it is a great way for you to learn how developers build, and you can also build out your own applications, and it makes people kind of get their hands on technology faster, but can also help you find optimizations, implement the optimization. So if you're watching from a FinOps point of view and you know developers that maybe you're like, oh, I wish they could just kind of get more involved in the FinOps stuff, but they don't want to go into the console. I know so many developers who are like console adverse, like I never want to get in the console. I do everything for the CLI. This kind of stuff is the development for them. So when it comes to you developing with Amazon Q, you use this to kind of get started on your projects a lot, right?
That's right, yes. So, I mean, because we do so many projects, each of our team members, we have kind of template starting point that we get started with, and then that's usually an existing repository of fundamental code structures for web interface, fundamentals for code for infrastructure as a code, so I get things deployed, and that's usually the starting point that we get off with.
Brilliant. And some of the things we're going to go through today, so we'll kind of high level, I'll say them now. So we're going to look at a little bit of like customizations and rules, saving and loading conversations, which I found recently, and I was like, this is so helpful, how you deal with large knowledge bases. And also we're going to touch on maybe MCP at the end. But we have also, people who have been watching recently know that we've been doing this. We've done a lot of MCP stuff, so we can always come back to that. But shall we get into talking about kind of the project startup? So how would you,
Right.
as a developer, approach starting a project with Amazon Q in mind?
Yes, yeah, sure. So you want me to go ahead, Steph?
Yeah, so shall I bring up your screen?
Yeah, let's do that. Then I would love to show this on the actual development environment. So you should see my Visual Studio Code that I'm using. And as you can see that this is an existing project. So this is basically the kind of base template that we start off in when we develop a new prototype. And what I want to show you is one thing that we define for Amazon Q is a set of so-called rules, and the way you can do that in your project, let's say, repository, you have this little folder here, Amazon Q, and then in that you have a folder called rules. And when you start up the Q CLI, you will see that in a minute, it reads these rules. And the way you describe rules is simply in Markdown, so plain English. You can explain a set of things that the agent should take into account. So, for example, we make use of Progen extensively to template new projects. So we describe here how that is done or how it should be done. And then the agent gets specific instructions. The other thing is we already defined a set of standard components for our projects. For example, CDK. Almost all our prototypes require infrastructure as code, and we use CDK for that. Almost all our projects need something like a web front end, TypeScript type web front end React project, and so on. And what you see here is basically what we as a team over time have the kind of standard components we want to have in that. And that's defined as a set of rules. So if you get the task to create a new shared CN UI web front end, then this is how you instantiate that. So now let me show you how that in action. So if I bring up my Q CLI, so I started up, and so I'm here now in my interface to interact with Q CLI. And when I show you what the agent has already in its context, you can see it has loaded these rules here.
Yeah.
Just shown you. So this means this is already in the context of this agent. So it's part of its knowledge already. And now I can go in and can give it a very simple prompt to get going with instantiating a first project, essentially. So let me just put in some pre-prepared text here. So basically what I want to do, create a CDK project, and then for infrastructure as code, I will use Python as a backend system. And then for the front end, I want a serverless web application called web app. Serverless means that the API interface that it should build should work with Lambda functions essentially. And this is pretty generic, and I can send this off, but because it has these rules in its context, it has a pretty good understanding what it needs to do. So for example, here, it realizes that it has to read the project definition file. It goes on and wants to expand that project definition with standard templates that it basically picked up from Google. So for example, you see here, blueprint, that's exactly where this is coming from. So it's picking up the standard definition for a CDK project. So, and this is, I'm not going to let this run through. I just wanted to demonstrate that the agent is capable to pick your instructions up. And we define rules for many things. Or, for example, you can express certain security guidelines that the agent has to follow. You can create a rule set. And if you need help, you can actually ask the agent, create a rules document for security.
Or cost? Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
For cost-effective architecture,
The spelling.
Place the doc in, and then I'm a bit deliberate. I basically say where it should save this file.
Yeah.
So you then just paste this in, and then let's see what it does. So, and usually this is a very easy way to get started with some rules. Document. If you have no idea, but you would like to have, let's say, for example, cost effectiveness to be taken care of, then let's see what it comes up with. And usually it comes up with some nice ideas, and keep in mind, you can always edit this and change that to reflect what you actually do. So
a good example of that kind of thing is, like, say you get some raw inspiration and you ask it to make a set, like make me an architecture one or make me a development one, and you write in CDK, I write in CloudFormation just because that's what I know, and I haven't taken the time yet to dive into it as much. And so if by default I start to see, oh, it keeps building me a CDK template, that I'm like, oh, it's so annoying. I wish it just did it in CloudFormation. Rules is a great example where you can say, hey, can you just do it like this? So my biggest advice when it comes to rules, if you find yourself constantly asking Q to redo something in a certain format, so for example, like put it into CloudFormation or write it in Python rather than JavaScript or something like that, just put it in the rules and it will do it for default. And then you'll also save on things like tokens and stuff like that, which is just better efficiency in general. So what's it come up with? What's some recommendations?
So I mean, this is the, so you now can see it has added this third document here. And by the way, just notice it picks up on the notation that we already have, which is a nice thing. And then when you look at the actual document itself, so it comes up here. This is nice. Start small, scale up. That's good. Use monitoring. That's good. Here, this one, serverless services, Lambda, DynamoDB, S3. This is all good, let's say, cost-effective services. Then what else here? Lambda functions, Graviton. So if you let's say develop and suddenly need EC2, this guidance steers towards cost-effective instances. Storage classes, cost optimized. Here, Glacier, this kind of stuff. So this is pretty good stuff. I mean, this is something gets you started here. GP3 volumes, because they cost significantly less than the GP2 volumes, obviously. So yeah, that's quite good stuff that you can get with catch with these rules-based system. So it's a very convenient way of covering that.
Yes. Absolutely brilliant. And then that's done. It like now knows this moving forward, which is really cool. What I'll do as well is bring this down. So we had a question which is Amazon Q free? So there is a free tier if you have, which someone's kindly put, which is thank you, Fisherman Guy Bro, which is there's a free tier using Builder ID. Yes, go and get your Builder ID and get into the free tier. There's a limit on I think how many prompts you can do, but you can start using it in the free way. Otherwise, for the development license, I think it's about $20 ish.
Yeah,
How
I
much
think
exactly.
19, 20. Let me
90, yeah, something along that. And
there
that's
was
a per
some.
month per subscription. Yeah. So you can use that. You create it in Identity Center. My biggest advice, if you are watching this and you're like, I want to roll this out across my org, like I want all the devs to have access and we want to pay for these licenses, choose an account to manage this so you can centrally see subscriptions. And then I would either ensure that the IAM permissions of roles to other accounts, or you like disallow it so that people can't keep building up users in different accounts, because it's a similar kind of thing as we see with QuickSight, where people have users and admin roles in every single account and then they're suddenly paying for multiple licenses. So we want to try and avoid that. But good questions in the chat. What I'll also do is bring up that another way that you can make these rules, if you are watching and you're a bit scared of CLI, which is very fair, you can also use the chat version to do this. So I'll bring this up on mine. So down here in the corner, you have this little rules button, and you can say kind of create me a rule. And for example, I like to think about this like if I say, let's do S3, it'll just make me a rule. And I can say always use int for my S3 bucket. So intelligent tiering, S3 buckets. That's something very simple, but that will save the file somewhere in your directory, like you saw on Stefan's. But if you were just like, I want to get this and you're using more of this chat functionality, there's also a way. So chat and rules is how you do it there. And then QCLI is context. This is an FYI. While we're here and I'm showing my screen, let's do a little poll. So so have you heard of Amazon Q? So put 1 in the chat for you're a loyal fan, 2 if you have kind of used it a couple of times, or 3 never heard of it but keen to kind of learn. So just drop those numbers in the chat and we'll see kind of who we're working with. So some people have seen it, some people haven't, but yeah, just keep dropping those in, especially on Twitch. So it's good to see some people have, but also if you've never used it before and this is your inciting incident to do it, then that's pretty exciting throughout, which is really cool. Okay, some people have, some people haven't. Moving on. So once you set up that kind of project starting point, we also once you've kind of done that, we talked a little bit about kind of code creation, but a large code base. So if you have a lot of information and you're trying to get started, like how does it handle that? And we're also going to talk a little bit about how you can check things like your context window and stuff like that, which is really cool. But I'll bring your screen back up and we can dive.
Yeah, right. So let me show you an example. So what I did is I jumped forward a bit. I have, let's say the project has a few checkpoints that I checked in, and I took a branch out where already a number of components have been developed. So for example, here I have a functional web front end with components. This is all React stuff. So that's in there now. And I have a working infrastructure project. That's my CDK code that deploys this infrastructure as code. And so now, let's say you start developing this in this environment now. So let's say you have this template web application. Let me just quit and clear a new session. So we start from scratch. So you now have this template application. In our case, it's just an empty web page which says, hello, welcome. So nothing in there. And then you want to add functionality to this. So you come along and then you say, you want to say something like, here, I explain that I want to add an additional feature to my application. So something like, please add a generative AI chat feature to my web app. Right. If we start off like this, and you don't give the agent much context, then this is what happens here.
Let's see.
It starts searching your files. It's
Okay.
reading files. It's getting into this directory here. It's reading the package definition of the web application. Then it goes into source directory, finds the backend, and finally, so it reads a lot of directories and files. Like a developer who comes to this code base has no background knowledge, you click around trying to find your way. That's exactly the same thing as the agent does. And now, after it has searched all these directory and files, it has an idea what it needs to do, and it then starts proposing some changes. Let me just get this finished.
There we go.
It now, let's say, makes some recommendation what it would like to change. And but the point is, you have seen that it goes through the whole directory structure and it tries to find its way.
Yeah.
And obviously, this takes up time and it takes up the tokens because the agent needs to go back and forth looking and finding its way through. Now, you can make this better and faster by deliberately controlling what the agent gets in its context. So you're adding deliberately files to the context. So let me show you. You can see what's in the context by, for example, you can check your current usage. So you see that my current context window has a number of files in there. And that's the one that were loaded by the agent, as well as the definitions coming from the rules. And you can also see what's being added to the context. What you define should become part of the context by default. So you say context show. And you can see that at the moment, I only have rules, but there is no source code files in there. The agent works much better if you add source code files. So that's what we are going to do. I will open up the configuration for my agent. And that's
in your Amazon Q file. So before we do that, when we're talking about agents, can we take a brief step back? So there's obviously, if I log on, I've just set up my QCLI and installed it. Do you refer to that as like the agent, or is this like an extra step to set up the?
So yeah, I mean, I agree. The term agent is a bit confusing, I would say. So if you look here, when I work with the Amazon QCLI, you see this name here.
Profile, yeah.
Profile, exactly. And in the context of Amazon Q, profile and agent, that's the same thing.
Okay.
So I have one profile, Twitch Amazon Q CLI. That's the agent. If you create another profile and you use this other profile, you essentially using a different agent. That's the terminology that kind of it's coming up. I mean, in the beginning, it was very confusing for me because I felt more comfortable with agent profile, and I switched the profile. But it seems that the people moving on to saying the agent, although they're just giving a different configuration, so to say. That's how it happens these days.
And one other kind of like a dumb question. So also when I set up my QCLI on my laptop, and folks, if you're watching, these questions are genuine. Like I've only started building with Amazon Q recently. And so when Stefan, we were talking about this episode, I was really excited because I get to learn something. So you've got this hidden file that's in this directory in your Visual Studio. Does that mean, because mine is just like in my .aws in my like hidden in my like user profile of my laptop.
Yes.
So can you have multiple, or
yes, you can have multiple. So if you might when you start up your agent, so here when I start the agent, I tell the agent, let's say which personality or which profile it should take on, essentially. And when I start this, you see this message here, agent conflict for using workspace version. I have another Twitch Amazon Q CLI agent in my home directory. I forgot to delete it.
Okay.
So the home directory has kind of a, it's read first, and then it realizes, oh, you have one in your project workspace. I'll take that. And I made that decision deliberately because in my workflow, these agents are customized to this project.
Interesting.
Because you will see, that's what I'm doing now. I'm now adding project-specific files to this agent. So let me do this.
Going to our context. Okay, yeah, okay. Thank you so much for explaining that bit. Guys,
Yeah,
if you've just joined us as well, feel free to ask any other kind of questions about this if you're getting to grips with Amazon Q or about general optimization. We can do that. People are saying hi in the chat. Welcome if you are joining us. So now you're putting in some files that are to do with your project.
That's right. So I'll just explain this. I just prepared this beforehand to make it a bit quicker. So basically what I say here, in resources, you see here, this is what was there before. And when the agent starts, these are the files that the agent loads into its context window. And then it has that knowledge right in its brain available when you ask questions. So what I'm doing now is I'm basically adding the patterns for the key files that make up my web app. TypeScript projects, CSS, Python files, potentially maybe some text files, JSON for configuration, and these kind of stuff. And if you look here, it refers to packages, web app. That is this folder here that we're looking at. And I specifically focus on the source folders. This is where essentially the source of my web application resides. So this way, I get the agent to load these files into the chat window. So now let me show you what happens when you do that. So let me just quit and restart. So I have to do that because it only picks up the profile when I load. So just to show you what happens now. So if you now look into the context, what is in that context or in that brain of this agent, you see there are much files in there, and they're all from my web application. Now, if I ask the same question as before, here, please add the generative AI chat feature to my web app, you will notice that now it doesn't need to search anymore. It goes straight into, yeah, I can help you with that, boom, makes a to-do list, and then starts creating the component. And this is what I realized, this is probably one of the most powerful features to control how your agent by being deliberate what files you make accessible, or you get the agent to load straight away. And the other advantage is, obviously, the more files of your project is in the context, it understands the relationship between these files, the relationship between these different elements. For example, at the moment, I'm focusing very much on the web application. This is all this TypeScript, React stuff. But what if I work on the CDK and the web application part? And I need to go back and forth because I'm in the middle of testing an API gateway which is deployed with CDK but used by the React web app. Well, then I can simply add essentially the project files that make up my my infrastructure project, which is the CDK stuff. So I just add that in. And again, so if you look here, infra, this refers to this package that makes up my CDK. And again, so I keep this in the source directory with all the TypeScript files for this one. And if you then So if I just quit, just to have a clean start, then you see that it initially loads everything into this. If you then check the context window, it has much more in there. So it now knows the web application and it knows the CDK stack. And this is very powerful. And this is really powerful when you're dealing with problems. Let's say you have a bug in your API gateway. Let's say the API is not well defined or has an issue, and therefore the web application fails. It throws up an error. It doesn't work. Then when you have both of these code sets in the context of the agent, it can work very efficiently, troubleshooting, fixing things, because it goes straight away where the API gateway definition is. And when you say, I have that problem in the web app, then it has very strong context finding out where the problem is. So this is very powerful, managing the context. And just one thing to keep in mind, obviously, this goes, this has an impact on your usage.
Yeah.
See that I have much more files now in the context window, and this is still okay. But if this goes, I mean, usually 50% utilization is a bit of a threshold for me. I then need to optimize how I do my file handling, and one way you can do that is I create a different profile. So I simply, for example, I take this one, copy this, and then I say, this is my infra.
Then you only have your infrastructure files and
right, and this is my web app. And in infra, I just keep only the infra files. So I delete this. And in
question on that. So what happens when you use what's the impact of having lots of tokens in your context window? Obviously you have a max.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah. So so when you have many tokens in your infrastructure window, so what happens is then, hold on a second, let me just finish this, because when I talk and type, then it usually goes wrong. So web app. See, this is what happens. I put the wrong
That's my
files.
bad. I distracted you.
So, okay, now I have brain capacity to answer your question. So what happens is, or the real challenge is when you fill up the context window with lots of stuff like tools and files and everything, and you have only a little bit left, usually the agent struggles to perform long-running tasks. For example, I see this very often in troubleshooting. So the agent, I give the agent an error. A CDK deployment doesn't work. The agent then investigates the code base, makes a fix, and then I usually make the agent to run the CDK deployment again. It runs the deployment, it does some tests, and again, it finds another error. And then this troubleshooting cycle fills up all these messages, the things it fixes, messages, it fills up the remaining of the context window. And when you get to the end, you have this, I always call this brain zap, essentially. It has a context window overflow, and then it does a summarization, but this summarization in the middle of a troubleshooting is not very helpful. And then it has forgotten everything it did in the last 10 minutes while it was troubleshooting something. So that's why I need to keep the utilization with tools and context files to 50% so that there is enough room for these troubleshooting activities. And what you can do is, so now that I have basically, I have 3 agents, or let's say 3 profiles, and the way you can use them is as follows. I need to start the agent again, so it picks up these additional profiles. I can switch between them. I can swap the
Ah,
identity, the personality. So it's a bit like,
okay.
so so for example, I now loaded this one here,
Hmm.
this everything agent that has everything in there. And when you check the usage, it has, yeah, 25% is being used.
Hmm.
Now, what I can do, I can say agent swap,
Oh.
and then basically say swap to the infrastructure agent. I now want to
Mhm.
work a bit more on focus on infrastructure. Oh, I need to, how did I call this? TLI infrastructure. It didn't pick it up.
Uh,
Oh, wait. Yeah. See, that's the other thing. So I need to give the name also here. Give me a
oh, there
second.
needs to be a name in there. Okay, good to know.
Right. Yeah. That's the
So we
name that it
check.
actually picks up. And
Right.
here I also need to attach web app. So
Okay.
that's this one. So that's fixed now. So let me just quickly do another start.
You see, I know what I'm going to be doing tomorrow is setting up some new profiles because the constant thing
Yeah,
I always deal
exactly.
with is having to be
I
like,
mean,
oh no, the file's here. Can you go to that file? And it's going to be able
yeah.
to have this contact.
So yeah, so now let's check the usage. Now I'm swapping to the infrastructure agent, which has only a subset of the files.
Okay, so we
And
run
if I check the
25920,
usage here,
and that's
then
much
you
smaller.
see it's smaller. What is
Oh, more,
this?
sorry.
Why is
Yeah,
this so
57.
strange number here? Oh, 17 point something. So that's why. Yeah, so you see it's smaller. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the same thing when I work on the, let's say the web app.
Hmm.
What is the usage here? Yeah, it's a different one, kind of.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
so
That's really
this is an
interesting.
efficient
Yeah.
way how you steer, how you control the agent, and be efficient with the tokens, so to say.
Yeah. Brilliant. All right, I'm going to bring this down. So we had a quick question. Actually, we had some comments, which is great presentation. Thank you, Danny. And then they also asked, can we look at rules? I would just say go back to kind of 10, 15 minutes in and we start doing a whole section on rules. So pop back. And if you're watching, you can catch this wherever you're watching it again. So just keep an eye on it. The best place I would say is YouTube. So you can kind of favorite that and get the things again. We had a question from Travis, which is thoughts on Q developer versus Kiro. Now, I feel like this is always a big question. So
Interesting.
what's your thoughts on comparing these two?
Right, yeah. I'm using Kiro since 2, 3 weeks, and I have to say it's a very different workflow, or let's say it's a different way of working. So I would say the strength of Kiro is you have this specification-driven development, which
Okay.
means you you need to you need to zoom out a little bit. I mean, if you are used to doing development for many years, you're probably used to having a very good mental model of your code base.
Right.
With Kiro, you have to let a bit go of that, because what happens is your focus shifts more towards working and thinking about specifications. And so you work to this workflow of defining your requirements, then you having your tasks, so to say, and then you let Kiro build stuff. Now
Hmm.
the challenge is a little bit to find the balance, because Kiro doesn't get everything right. So you always need to have a point where you essentially review the work.
Hmm.
So essentially, when you work with Kiro, it's a bit like you're leading a team of developers, and your task is being the senior developer and reviewing the code and
Mm.
guidance from an architecture perspective. And the other thing that I use, what I now do more deliberately with Kiro, is I think deliberately, okay, how far do I let Kiro build things or write code until I have a cycle where I test and review everything. So
Right.
usually what happens is I have a bit of a sprint where I just work with requirements, design, produce code, and then it produces a whole module for me, 10, 12 files or whatever. And
Hmm.
then I switch mode. Okay, so let's test this piece of work, this unit of work. Get the CDK deployed. Does it work? If it doesn't work, fix it. Now that I have deployed it, do I need to build a set of tests that test the API, that test the infrastructure that has been built. And of course, you're running into errors. And then you work with Cure to fix these errors before you move to the next module, to the next phase, so to say. So it's a very different kind of working, I would say.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. So I've got a couple more questions. One is, well, this is the point. Stefan, we miss you in Ment PS. I don't know if you know this person.
Really, Wally? That's cool.
I
Great
was
to
like, I
see
was
you.
really hoping you knew who this was because I was panicking then.
Oh,
And
that's
then they
nice.
also said they have Q in
Wally,
Hero.
that's cool.
There you go, throwback. Okay, so we've got a couple of technical questions. Oh, someone's also said, I've used Kiro and I developed an app. I don't know what I'm doing, but I have an app. That's a great kind of showcase of the power
Yeah,
of these tools where you can just like
yeah.
people who could never create before are creating. So another question, which is let's go from Danny. I was looking at creating an agent for doing a code review, but what is the best way to create such an agent? For example, review my Java code for best practices.
To be honest, if you work with Q developer, I mean, I would do something like this. So I would
So bring up
actually
your
use,
screen.
yeah. If you bring up the screen, so I start my agent, and so let me. So what do I? So yeah, here's the thing. So I have my web app. Let me
Mhm.
just double check if my web app is in the context, just to double check. So yeah, this is the big one. So the web app isn't there. So when you develop a React app, you have certain best practice. I would say, please review my web app against, let's say, React best practice. Give me a summary for improvement. So something like that. And I mean, you can be a bit more deliberate. Let's say if you have certain standards, coding standards that you want to be compliant with, you can probably provide that as well. So you now see that, oh, here, review component organization and architecture. That makes a lot of sense. So it goes through all these files, and so let this run while we talk, and let me see what's coming back. So keep in mind, and this is what I always remind people of, these coding agents have been trained, or let's say the
Mhm.
large language behind that, have been trained of all the knowledge in things like Stack Overflow, any kind of papers in the space of software engineering, software architecture. They have been probably trained on public copies of books about good architecture, good code,
Mm.
test-driven development. This is all embedded in these LLMs. And
Mhm.
that's why this is one of the reasons why these models are so good in generating code, because they have seen what millions of people have produced over the last
Yeah.
10, 15 years. And it would be very hard for you to beat that. So you just have to, let's say, steer the agent by looking at this. And for example, one thing I noticed in the beginning is when I was doing this kind of vibe coding, just to get a bit of an idea how I can build a web application, it
Mhm.
created a unstructured code. But the moment I said, hey, I don't like this, too big of the code files, it's very unstructured, it's very hard for me to find my way to this code base, I deliberately went into a discussion with the agent. Hey, tell me, what is a good architecture for an API? What
Okay.
is what are the kind of services I should use for an API? How do I secure an API? So you have a bit of a dialogue about the what you want to build, and then it comes back with that. Oh yeah, you should have followed this kind of structure. This is how you break this down, and then you say, okay, fine. Now create me a project in this structure, or refactor my
Mhm.
project that structure. And this is where it gets quite powerful. So I'm not
So
sure what.
we while that's kind of running, we had the question, and I'm aware of time because I know we have a couple more things to get to. They also, your friend said, why not use the /review from Q Developer extension in
Oh
the
yeah,
Q
yeah,
chat?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the reason why I used in the here is simply because I was using the QCLI so extensively that I was just in that in that tool and then worked in there.
Okay,
So
fair enough.
here it comes back with recommendations. So here, here no error boundaries. Okay,
Oh,
missing. Okay,
tut.
findings here. API calls have no error handling. Okay, so it's pretty bad code actually.
That's so funny.
So
So
I
yeah,
mean,
just make sure this is
this is
very
how I
good.
do
Yeah.
this kind of review.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you for the feedback. And then we had one more question before. I really want to touch on two more things before we finish. And the last question is, can the agent profile create an optimized agent profile? So I would assume, yes, you could ask Q to make you an agent profile for you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I think here in this option, you can here create an agent specific, and then it gives you some
Ah,
here set default. Oh, sorry, no, show the agent config schema. But the thing is, I never use this. I always have my standard
your file, yeah.
file,
Fair
and
enough.
then it's not that hard to find your way through this. And if
Mhm.
you're not clear about certain things, for example, you can always ask Q, what is that setting? And
What
then
are
it
these
has to,
things? Yeah.
yeah, and then
And
find your way through this.
yeah, and we had another question, which is, can you have global rules for Amazon Q? Like, because I know you
Yes.
said it mentioned it from
Yeah,
somewhere the file.
you place them in your home directory. So in the same way you have this project specific Amazon Q directory, there
Mhm.
exists one in your home directory, and that's where you
Yeah.
then place rules that apply to everything that you do in the console.
Ah, so those are kind of like permissions and I like the kind of like order of stuff. It looks there first,
Right.
like understands the
Yeah.
permissions, and then it goes more deeply.
Right.
Awesome.
Yes.
Okay. Great questions, folks. Now, the two things I wanted to touch on before we finish were to-dos, and in there I saw tools. We haven't
Yes.
talked, me and you, about tools, but what counts as tools?
Tools.
Yeah.
You mean in the
In
QCLI?
those agents. Yeah. There was like an option for tools, and I was intrigued
Oh,
what.
yeah. So tools is this setting here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, oh man, I don't use that too
Oh,
much.
then don't worry. I just wondered what it was if you had an example. But if not, we'll skip that. But one thing you did mention was to-dos, and I saw that
Yes.
to-dos started to come up a little bit, which is quite cool.
Yeah. So
So
you
let's chat
saw
about those.
you saw this behavior, and this is something I noticed. This is happening now automatically. So when you have
Ah,
activities that where it takes a bit more time, it's not just a simple question then an answer. It starts creating to-dos. And this is actually quite good because sometimes when you have a long running activity, let's say you refactor something, it's better you have a list of to-dos and then the
mhm.
agent processes through this. And all your to-dos, they end up here in this folder. And they're kind of persisted. So even if you have this brain zap happening in between
Mhm.
while it's halfway through, you can always say continue with the to-do list, and then it continues.
Ah,
It forgot where it was, which is quite
Wh-
convenient for large
yeah,
complex.
yeah. And we were this also could kind of segue into the save and load conversation thing we wanted to mention as well.
Yes. So we spoke about this. So I mentioned this example about let's say if you have an architectural discussion. Oh no, wait a second. Let me stop here. So for example, here I have this situation that I ask, do this code review for me, and I say,
Mhm.
quite a lot of stuff I need to work on. I have no time to do that now. So what I do now is I simply say save code review JSON. Right. So then it's saved to a file here on my project, and then
Yeah.
it's there, and then I can decide. So let's say I clear everything of what I've done before. Let's say I come back a week later and I say, okay, now I would like to go back to what the review was. I then can say, load this conversation, and then I just bring it back here and say, load this. What did you suggest? So just to show that it remembers what we were talking about. And so this is a way of here. So this is a way of saving where you think, oh, there's a nice piece of information, but I can't do something like this, so I just save it. It's a good thing.
When it comes with these, like the saving stuff, and also with MCPs, how do having those kind of things affect your usage? By bringing those back up, do they increase it, or?
Oh, yes. So yeah, I can show you this actually. So if you, let's say, if you clear the whole conversation, and then we check usage. Oh, yeah. So, and then let's say I load this. Of course, you load this into your context window so you can see.
Oh, it's the same.
It's the
same. But the prompt's different. That's the token change, right? It goes into
the
prompt.
Yeah, the prompt. Yeah, you're right. Here, this is the one. Yeah, exactly. It loaded this into the prompt section. That's right. Yes, that way it goes.
Nice. Okay, that's good to know. I'm really enjoying. I'm definitely can't wait to go play around with making these kind of things myself. And we'll come on to our last bit of topic, but great questions in the chat overall. Let me just check. So also there was a suggestion from your friend, creating a meta prompt. So to create anything you want, ask you to create me a prompt to create a profile. I've seen Alex do that a few times, where if you're not sure where to start with a prompt, you could be like, suggest some ideas of how to do this.
Exactly.
And that kind of meta prompting is very, very cool. I think getting you excited about it. But kind of bringing this back to optimization before we do our last bit is, again, big suggestion is, as you are developing, if you're finding things that you want to use more as you optimize, one thing I suggest is maybe playing around with some of these kind of rules and making a rule template that you can share across your organization. If you're a FinOps persona, that's what I think kind of the future will be. So if you define these things, like what tags are supposed to be in there, Graviton for managed services, GP3 for volumes, all the really simple things, or Lambda function Graviton or CloudWatch retention, and have those as a rules file and then give them to everyone. They can set them up, then they never have to worry about kind of optimizing. You don't have to chase people down the line. It kind of works in a similar concept of how we see SCP, so kind of preventative measures, but that are less stern. And so if you're moving to a more kind of agentic focused development process, get in there early, because no shade to Amazon Q. However, I have noticed that sometimes when it builds stuff, it doesn't build it the most cost optimized at the start. And so you kind of have to tell it. It's the same as in the console. Like when a CloudWatch log group is created for a Lambda function, it's never going to send it to a certain retention period, because we don't know what you want. Amazon Q doesn't know what you want, so you still have to tell it, which is really important. Finally, I think, was there anything else you wanted to cover apart from MCPs?
Knowledge base.
Oh yeah, knowledge base. Let's quickly touch on that. We've got about
knowledge base.
3 minutes left.
That's a quick one. Yeah. So that's a quick one. So one thing that I often encounter is I have a code example, let's say a code base that I would like to use. For example, developing UIs. I like to work with CloudWatch, a Cloudscape design system, and they have a great way of having demos that you can work with. They have a source code for that. Now, this is a pretty big code base of samples, and you don't want to have that filling up your context. One way you can handle this is, and this is what I did here, is I basically pulled down the demos, the Cloudscape demos, into a resource folder, and then the QCLI, I can define what's called a knowledge base, which is a set of documents which become searchable. They are not part of your context window. So this is basically like a search.
Okay.
So I say add to my knowledge, these files. I've done this already before. It takes a few minutes to scan everything. Knowledge, then show. Oops. Oh no.
Cool.
Did it work? Oh, yeah. So here you see it has indexed all these files, and there are 389 files. Now what you can do here is you can say use your knowledge
Spelling the word.
knowledge base to find an example for a Cloudscape dashboard. So, and what it does, hopefully this works. So here, by saying use your knowledge or use your knowledge base, it starts using the knowledge tool, and it then searches in that knowledge base all the files that have been indexed, and it then finds examples
to use. Yeah.
and then pulls some additional information from Cloudscape. And this is a good way of, I usually use this when I work off another code example. I say, you put in knowledge base and then help me find the right files. So this is a very powerful way.
Yeah. All of that was so helpful. We're just almost at time, so I'll wrap it really quickly. I've seen some really good comments. My biggest ask, guys, if you found this useful, please email costoptimization@amazon.com. It means a lot to hear from people that are enjoying this and also going to use this kind of stuff. So if we answered one of your questions today, take a moment, drop us an email. It would be super, super helpful. Last couple of bits from me. If you want to stay up to date with everything that we are doing, check out my LinkedIn. AWS Steph is my profile. It's where I share all announcements of shows, content, blogs that our teams are doing. You can also subscribe to the AWS Customer Acceleration team, which is where we have the new show starting on Monday, all about Stefan's team and the builders they do. There is also a kind of builder studio, so you can see all the episodes that we have in the future. And in here, you can also follow me if you scan this. That's wrong link. If you scan this QR code, this is where I post summaries of episodes we do every single week. So please subscribe on there. And finally, if you're heading to reInvent, so am I. I have 2 sessions, plus Optics have a bunch more. So these 2, they're filling up quick. So go and favorite them so that you don't lose out on getting a seat for my 2 that I'm doing. And then these ones are Optics people that you know and have seen on the show before. With that, we'll say goodbye. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for the awesome questions, Stefan. Thank you for this knowledge. I can't wait to go and play around with it. But we will see you all next week. And I'll hopefully see some of you on Monday. Thanks for now. Bye.